It's Week 14 of the 2022 NFL season. The Rams, reigning Super Bowl champs, at the moment are down 16-10, observing a protracted, depressing end to their season. Their roster, once packed with stars, is now ravaged by injuries. Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Matthew Stafford are all on the sidelines. This game is just another letdown in a forgettable season. Or is it? For Baker Mayfield, this game is anything but meaningless. This is his shot at redemption, his final chance to prove to the world and to himself that he still belongs. With just 2 days to learn a new playbook, Mayfield's back is against the wall. But as the Rams start their final drive from their own 2-yard line, no one could predict what was about to unfold. Then, catastrophe. Mayfield throws a pick, intercepted by Duron Harmon. Game over, right? But no, there's a flag.
It's a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down.
A pass interference call saves the Rams and gives Mayfield one last chance at greatness. Could this be the moment that changes everything? This version ramps up the drama and creates emotional investment while building tension around key moments to engage the audience all the way through. A 9-yard sack. Just like that, the Rams were on the verge of collapse. Pinned deep in their own territory, it felt like their last shot at victory was slipping away. But then, out of nowhere, Jerry Tillery made a costly mistake. In a moment of frustration, he swatted the ball out of Mayfield's hands, trying to waste valuable seconds. A flag flew, unsportsmanlike conduct. The Rams were given new life. And, hey, if you're enjoying this breakdown and appreciate the hard work that goes into creating content like this, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It's the result of one person's dedication, and your support means everything. Let's grow this channel together. Back on their 28-yard line, with only 80 seconds left, Baker Mayfield caught fire. His back against the wall, this was his chance. No timeouts, no room for mistakes. With the weight of the moment on his shoulders, Mayfield let it fly. 32 yards downfield to Ben Skowronek. Skowronek soared, coming down with the catch. The Rams weren't done yet. Something special was happening. This revision amplifies the drama and provides a sense of progression, keeping viewers engaged for what comes next. Tick, tick, tick. Time was running out, but Mayfield wasn't. He took the snap, scanned the field, and quickly found Malcolm Brown in the flat. Brown surged ahead, fighting for every inch, picking up 9 yards before being dragged down inbounds. The Rams were moving, but the clock was not their friend. No time to waste. On the very next play, Mayfield hit Skowronek again, this time for 8 yards. With each completion, the impossible comeback felt a little more real. Could they actually pull this off? 16 seconds. That's all Baker had left. He spiked the ball to stop the clock, but everyone watching knew the next throw was everything. It wasn't just about the game anymore. This was about redemption. This was the moment that would either resurrect Baker's career or bury it for good. And that throw, it changed everything. Fast forward to 2024, and Baker Mayfield isn't just surviving, he's thriving. Week after week, he's lighting up defenses, making them look silly as he tears through the league. But here's the real question. How did a quarterback who was left for dead by the league stage one of the most insane comebacks in NFL history? How did Baker Mayfield go from outcast to unstoppable? Childhood growing up. Baker Reagan Mayfield was born on April 14, 1995, in Austin, Texas. His name was the result of a compromise. His mom loved Baker, but his dad insisted on naming him after former President Ronald Reagan. His father, James, worked in private equity, but financial struggles soon hit the family, forcing them out of their home and into rental houses throughout much of Baker's youth. It was a tough time, but it's through these challenges that Baker's relentless determination began to take shape. Football became his escape, his obsession. Even as a kid growing up in Texas, Baker had his heart set on the Oklahoma Sooners. By the time he reached Lake Travis High School, he was ready to make a name for himself. But success didn't come overnight. Baker didn't even make the varsity team until his junior year, and when he finally did, he made history. Leading his team to a Division IVA state championship, an enormous achievement in football-crazed Texas, Baker's future was looking bright. His senior year saw fewer games, but the stats still spoke volumes. He ended his high school career with 6,255 passing yards, 67 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions. Not only that, but he added over 1,000 rushing yards and 13 scores on the ground. Lake Travis had a 25-2 record with Baker under center. He wasn't just a promising player, he was becoming legendary. Despite an impressive 2-year run as a starting quarterback, Baker Mayfield flew under the radar for many college scouts. ESPN gave him a 3-star rating and ranked him as the 69th best quarterback in the 2013 recruiting class. He got some offers from Division I schools, Florida Atlantic, New Mexico, Rice, Washington State, but none of them came close to his dream of playing for Oklahoma. For a kid who grew up idolizing the Sooners, this felt like a crushing disappointment. Baker could have taken the easy route and gone to Florida Atlantic. They wanted him, and he could have made an immediate impact. But his father pushed him to think bigger. If he wanted to make it to the NFL, he needed to be on a bigger stage. And so, Baker made a choice that surprised everyone. He walked on at Texas Tech, with nothing guaranteed. It was a huge gamble, but Baker was betting on himself. Dominant college career. Even though he walked on at Texas Tech, Baker Mayfield didn't just make the team, he made history. As the first walk-on freshman ever to start in a Week 1 game, Mayfield broke through barriers, showing the world that talent and determination can't be measured by scholarships alone. In his first start against Southern Methodist, Baker put on a clinic, throwing for 413 yards and 4 touchdowns on an impressive 60 pass attempts, while adding another score on the ground. Texas Tech was rolling, and Mayfield led them to a 5-0 start. But just when it seemed like nothing could stop him, disaster struck. A knee injury knocked Mayfield out for the next 4 weeks, and the Red Raiders struggled without their star. When Mayfield returned, things didn't go as planned. His knee may have healed, but the momentum he'd built was gone. Texas Tech lost 3 straight games, and the team was outscored by a staggering 153-76. For the first time in his college career, Baker Mayfield was struggling. No touchdowns in 2 of the losses and 4 interceptions. It was clear he wasn't playing at the level he expected of himself. The pressure was mounting, and doubt began to creep in. Despite the disappointing end to his freshman season, Baker Mayfield had already accomplished something that few walk-ons ever do. It's almost unheard of for a walk-on freshman to even touch the field, let alone start in Week 1 and dominate the way Mayfield did. His freshman season was nothing short of exceptional, throwing for 2,315 yards, 12 touchdowns, and adding 190 yards and 3 scores on the ground in just 8 games. Mayfield wasn't just playing, he was leading. But in 2014, transferring wasn't as simple as it is today. Mayfield's dream of playing for Oklahoma came with a heavy price. He was forced to sit out the entire season. Imagine the frustration. After proving everyone wrong in his freshman year, Baker was stuck on the sidelines, watching, waiting, but that fire, it didn't dim. It only grew stronger. By the time 2015 rolled around, Mayfield wasn't just ready. He was itching to prove himself once again. A full year of watching from the sidelines had only fueled his hunger. The moment his name was called, you knew something special was about to happen. The stage was set, and Baker Mayfield was ready to take the reins at Oklahoma. Much like his debut at Texas Tech, Baker Mayfield put on a show in his first start for Oklahoma, this time against the Akron Zips. He threw for 388 yards and 3 touchdowns, adding another score on the ground. The Sooners rattled off 4 straight wins to start the season, but then came the Red River rivalry. One of the most intense matchups in college football, it was Mayfield's first real test as a Sooner. But in a hard-fought battle, Oklahoma fell short to Texas, handing Baker his first loss of the season. That loss would be the only blemish on the Sooners' regular season record. Outside of the Texas game, Mayfield tormented Big 12 defenses, and when it came time for a revenge game against his former team, Texas Tech, Mayfield made sure to make it count. He threw for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 63-27 blowout. It wasn't just a win, it was personal. Oklahoma finished the regular season with an 11-1 record and a Big 12 championship, earning their first ever berth in the college football playoff. But in the Orange Bowl, they ran into the top-seeded Clemson Tigers, led by future NFL star Deshaun Watson. It was a clash of future pros, but the Sooners were outmatched, falling 37-17. Despite the tough end, Baker had already made history. He threw for 3,700 yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions while leading the Big 12 in passing touchdowns and completion percentage. His remarkable season earned him the title of Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, cementing his place as one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Following his incredible debut at Oklahoma, the 2016 season got off to a disastrous start. Ranked 3rd in the nation, the Sooners had sky-high expectations, but they were shocked in their opening game by a talented Houston team, falling 33-23. The loss sent Oklahoma crashing down the rankings to 14th. Then, in Week 3, Oklahoma faced another giant, Ohio State. In what felt like a make-or-break game, the Sooners were handed another crushing defeat. 2 losses in the first 3 weeks, and just like that, their playoff hopes seemed all but gone. But that's when Mayfield's resilience kicked in. The Sooners didn't lose again for the rest of the season. Baker finally secured his first career win over Texas. And then came the game that would go down in history. The duel with Patrick Mahomes. Returning to Texas Tech, Mayfield faced off against Mahomes in one of the greatest shootouts college football has ever seen. Touchdown after touchdown, the 2 quarterbacks traded blows. When the dust settled, Baker had thrown for 545 yards and 7 touchdowns on just 36 attempts, leading Oklahoma to a 66-59 victory. Mahomes wasn't far behind, racking up 734 yards and 5 touchdowns on a stunning 88 attempts. It was a performance for the ages, and Mayfield had once again proven that he was one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Oklahoma's 2016 season ended on a high note with a 35-19 win over Auburn in the Sugar Bowl, and Mayfield once again delivered an incredible performance. He threw for 3,965 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions while completing 70.9% of his passes, the best completion rate in all of college football that year. But with their playoff hopes crushed so early in 2016, Mayfield and the Sooners came into 2017 with one goal: redemption. This wasn't just another season, it was personal. Oklahoma wasn't just playing to win. They were on a mission to prove they belonged at the top. After a dominant win in Week 1, the Sooners faced their first real test: second-ranked Ohio State. Just a year earlier, Oklahoma had been embarrassed by the Buckeyes in a 21-point blowout. But this time, Mayfield flipped the script. He shredded Ohio State's defense for 386 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then came the moment no one would forget. In one of the boldest acts of defiance in college football history, Mayfield took the Oklahoma flag and planted it right in the middle of Ohio State's logo at the 50-yard line. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. But just 2 games later, Oklahoma's perfect season was derailed by a shocking 38-31 loss to Iowa State at home. It was a wake-up call. The Sooners dropped to 12th in the rankings, and their playoff hopes were hanging by a thread. From that point forward, it was win or go home. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Toward the tail end of the regular season, Mayfield had a moment of disrespect that might have even topped his flag plant at Ohio State. In a pregame incident against Kansas, the Jayhawk players refused to shake Mayfield's hand. It was a clear sign of disrespect, and Mayfield took it personally. For him, this wasn't just a game, it was about pride. From that moment on, he made it his mission to demoralize Kansas on the field. Things escalated when a Kansas cornerback took a cheap shot at Mayfield after a pass. And after throwing a 3-yard touchdown to Mark Andrews, Mayfield let his emotions get the best of him. In a moment that sparked national controversy, he taunted the Jayhawks, grabbing his crotch in defiance. The announcers were quick to criticize the move, saying NFL scouts wouldn't like what they saw. But for Mayfield, it was pure passion, a fire that had been lit from the opening coin toss. Mayfield finished the game with 257 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Oklahoma finished the season 11-1. In the Big 12 championship, they dominated TCU, winning 41-17 and securing a second trip to the college football playoff. But in his final college game, Mayfield and the Sooners fell just short in a 54-48 thriller against Georgia. Even in defeat, Mayfield was brilliant, throwing for 287 yards and 2 touchdowns against one of the country's top defenses. It was the perfect send-off, a fitting end to one of the most legendary college careers. His senior season numbers were astounding: 4,627 yards, 43 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. He led the nation in completion percentage for the second year in a row. His performances earned him another Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year award, a unanimous All-American selection, and the ultimate accolade, the Heisman Trophy. It was the culmination of a career defined by passion, grit, and an unrelenting will to win. From college walk-on to NFL first overall pick, Baker Mayfield's journey is a roller coaster of triumph and tribulation. But can he break the Cleveland Browns quarterback curse? Imagine being drafted to a team that just went 0-16. The pressure's on and the doubters are loud, but Mayfield's used to beating the odds. Let's break down how this underdog quarterback took on one of the NFL's toughest challenges. In 2018, the Cleveland Browns held the first overall pick in the NFL draft. Their goal? A quarterback who drew comparisons to legends like Brett Favre and Drew Brees. Baker Mayfield, the Heisman Trophy winner, was about to step into a franchise quarterback graveyard.
Here's Mayfield, Heisman hopeful, wide open and complete. Mark Andrews, Baker Mayfield does it!
But Mayfield became no stranger to adversity. This turned into a man who walked on at distinctive schools and still managed to become one of the maximum prolific passers in NCAA record for Week 3, 2018. The Browns are hosting the New York Jets, and beginning quarterback Tyrod Taylor is going down. Enter Baker Mayfield. What came about next could electrify Cleveland and shock the NFL global. As the season clock ticked down, Mayfield had rewritten the Browns' record books. 725 yards through the air, 27 touchdowns, and a final touch charge that would make even seasoned vets jealous, 63.8%. But the actual magic? Mayfield had become an 0-16 laughingstock into a first-rate 7-7-1 group. The soccer world took observe. Mayfield was in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year, going toe-to-toe with the Giants' phenom Saquon Barkley. Though Barkley ultimately took home the hardware, it became clean. Baker Mayfield had arrived. As the confetti settled on Mayfield's rookie marketing campaign, Cleveland buzzed with an unfamiliar feeling: hope. But inside the NFL, the day prior to this hero can quickly emerge as brand new cautionary tale. The 2019 season loomed huge. Browns lovers, starved for fulfillment for see you later, now confronted an acquainted quandary: dare to accept as true with or brace for disappointment. On paper, matters seemed promising. The Browns had introduced superstar huge receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Suddenly, playoff whispers turned to Super Bowl murmurs. But could Mayfield take care of the weight of a metropolis's goals? Mayfield's gunslinger mentality, his willingness to make risky, excessive reward throws, had thrilled enthusiasts in 2018. But as defenses tailored, would his bold become his downfall? The season opener in opposition to the Titans would set the tone. And for Browns fans, it became a familiar, painful song. Mayfield threw not one, no longer 2, but 3 interceptions. Final rating, Titans 43, Browns 13. The Baker Mayfield roller coaster had just hit its first principal drop. But don't forget, that is the NFL. One game would not define a season. The query now, could Baker Mayfield get better and show the doubters wrong another time? 2019 wasn't just a sophomore slump for Mayfield. It changed into a nightmare that threatened to derail his whole career. But inside the NFL, legends aren't born from smooth paths. The numbers have been brutal. In 10 out of 16 games, Mayfield threw as many or more interceptions as touchdowns. Browns lovers watched in horror as their golden boy quarterback spiraled. By season's give-up, the stat line was unsightly. 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions, and a profession-low 59.4% final touch charge. The whispers grew to shouts: is Baker Mayfield a bust? But here's the component about Baker Mayfield. He's at his first rate whilst all and sundry counts him out. As the dirt settled on 2019's unhappiness, Mayfield confronted a pivotal second. Would he crumble underneath the pressure, or rise like a phoenix from the ashes? New year, new coach, new Baker. The NFL Global watched with bated breath. What modified for Mayfield? A new head educate, a cultured offense, and perhaps most importantly, a chip on his shoulder the size of Lake Erie. Suddenly, the Baker of vintage turned into again. His passes, laser-centered. His choice-making, sharper than ever. The Browns were not just triumphing, they have been dominating. Have you ever visible a metropolis's hopes rise in actual time? That became Cleveland in 2020. As the wins piled up, a long dormant dream started to stir. 11-5. The Browns' first-class document in generations. But the real prize? A playoff berth for the primary time in 18 years. But could Mayfield and the Browns deliver whilst it truly counted? The wild card spherical pitted them in opposition to the playoff-hardened Pittsburgh Steelers. David versus Goliath? More like Baker versus the world. 48-37, Browns win. Mayfield's stat line: 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. In just one season, Baker Mayfield had gone from potential bust to playoff hero. But in the NFL, you are only as good as your next game. The question now, was this the peak of Mayfield's redemption arc, or just the beginning? In the divisional round of the playoffs, Mayfield and the Browns took on the Kansas City Chiefs. Coming into the game, Cleveland was heavily outmatched, but Mayfield kept them competitive. For a brief moment, it looked like they might pull off the upset. But when the final whistle blew, the Chiefs held a 22-17 lead, and Cleveland's Cinderella run had come to an end. The 2021 season was a battle for Mayfield. After suffering a partially torn labrum in Week 2 against the Texans, Baker wasn't the same. His throwing motion had to change, and it significantly impacted his passing. But instead of sitting out, Mayfield powered through, playing in 14 games. His stats took a hit, but it was a testament to his determination. Through pain and frustration, Mayfield refused to quit on his team, showing once again his unwavering commitment to the game. But after the tough 2021 season, it was clear that Mayfield's time in Cleveland was coming to an end. The Browns had their sights set on Deshaun Watson, and despite everything Mayfield had given to the team, Cleveland was moving on. Mayfield was traded to the Carolina Panthers for a conditional 2024 draft pick. His departure was bittersweet. Many of his teammates spoke out, praising his character and leadership in the locker room. But the Browns had made their choice, and Mayfield was forced to start over. Mayfield won the starting job for the Panthers heading into the 2022 season, and fate gave him a shot at revenge right away. Week 1, Panthers versus Browns. This wasn't just another game, this was personal. Mayfield had something to prove. He threw for 235 yards and a touchdown, keeping the Panthers in the fight until the very end. But despite his efforts, they fell just short, losing 26-24. His redemption would have to wait. Things didn't improve much for Mayfield in Carolina. He won just one of his next 4 starts, and in his final 2 games, he threw 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. His last game for the Panthers ended in disappointment. 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and another benching. Mayfield's time in Carolina came to an abrupt and frustrating end, and once again, he found himself looking for a fresh start. 2 weeks after his final game with the Panthers, the team announced Baker Mayfield's release. For the first time in his career, it seemed like everything was slipping away. Unable to hold the starting job on one of the worst teams in the league, many wondered if Mayfield's time as a starting quarterback was over. But just when it seemed like his career was at a crossroads, the Los Angeles Rams offered him a chance, and Mayfield didn't waste it. With only 2 days to learn the playbook, he orchestrated a stunning 2-minute drive, throwing a game-winning touchdown to stun the Las Vegas Raiders. That heroic moment earned him the starting job for the rest of the season, proving that he still had the fire to compete at the highest level. Though the Rams had no hopes of making the playoffs, Mayfield's performance showed NFL coaches that he could still be a starter. Mayfield's best game with the Rams came in Week 16 against the Denver Broncos, where he threw for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns in a dominant 51-14 win. It was a glimpse of what he was still capable of when given the right opportunity. In the offseason, Mayfield signed a 1-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this wasn't just any team, it was Tom Brady's team. Stepping into the shadow of the greatest quarterback of all time, the pressure on Mayfield was immense. His contract was structured so that if he didn't perform, the Bucs wouldn't have to bring him back. Once again, Mayfield's back was against the wall. But when the pressure was at its highest, Mayfield rose to the occasion. In 2023, he delivered the best season of his career, throwing for 4,444 yards, 28 touchdowns, and a 64.3% completion rate. He led Tampa Bay to a 9-8 record, earning a playoff spot. For the first time in his career, Mayfield was named a Pro Bowler. From being written off to leading a team to the playoffs, Mayfield's career had come full circle, proving once again that he thrives under pressure. In the first round of the playoffs, Tampa Bay took on a powerhouse Philadelphia Eagles team, one of the most dominant teams on both sides of the ball all season. But for Baker Mayfield, this wasn't just about winning. It was about proving himself. And prove himself he did. Mayfield didn't just lead the Bucs to an upset, he dismantled the Eagles' defense. Throwing for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns, Mayfield orchestrated a 32-9 victory, sending shockwaves through the league. It was a statement win, a defining moment in Mayfield's career. In the divisional round, Tampa Bay faced the elite Detroit Lions. While the Bucs came up short, losing 31-23, Mayfield once again showed why he belongs on the top level. He threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, proving he could stand toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league. The loss was tough, but for Mayfield, it was another step in his journey of redemption. Now, as the 2024 season begins, Mayfield is off to one of the best starts of his career. Early on, he's already been one of the top quarterbacks in the league. While only time will tell if he can maintain this pace. If he does, this could be another career year for a player who was nearly out of the league just a few seasons ago. What's clear now is that Baker Mayfield has tested himself as extra than just a successful starter in Tampa Bay. It's super to think that if he hadn't thrown that recreation-prevailing landing skip in opposition to the Raiders, none of this were viable. That one moment might also have sparked one of the best comeback testimonies in recent NFL history. Before you go, remember that this content is the hard work of one person who is passionate about bringing you the best insights. If you found it valuable, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. It truly helps and motivates me to keep going. Thanks for being a part of this journey.